The water crisis dries up resources.
Mississippi still without one basic human necessity, clean drinking water.
The federal government will impose new restrictions on the amount of water Arizona and Nevada can take from the Colorado River.
Water is life. We drink it, grow food with it, and build entire cities around it. But despite how essential water is, only about 2.5% of all the water on Earth is fresh, and most of that is locked away in glaciers or buried deep underground. The United States holds roughly 7% of the world's renewable freshwater resources. The USA is third globally in freshwater supply. It has over 100 lakes, with Lake Superior, Lake Ontario, Lake Michigan, and Lake Erie being the largest and most vital. That may sound like a lot, but it's not infinite. With every passing year, we are using more than nature can replace. In Texas, tensions are rising as farmers accuse Mexico of breaking a decades-old water treaty. In Arizona, the ground is literally splitting apart as underground water supplies vanish. And across the Mississippi River, barges are getting stuck on dry ground as water levels drop lower each year. What is happening to America's water? Is this just a drought? Or are we entering a new era where clean water becomes a luxury? Could the future really bring wars not over oil, but over water? According to scientists, this scenario is no longer science fiction. If global consumption continues on its current path, billions of people could face a clean water crisis by 2050. In this video, we explore the unfolding water crisis in the United States. Don't switch. This story is deeper than you think. But before we dive in, please take a moment to hit that like button. It's a small action, but it helps YouTube's algorithm promote our videos to a wider audience. Texas farmers and the Rio Grande. For decades, the Rio Grande has been a lifeline for farmers in southern Texas. This river marks the border between the United States and Mexico, and it carries more than just water. It carries history, treaties, and the delicate balance between two nations. In 1944, the two countries signed an agreement to share the river's water. Mexico promised to deliver a specific amount every 5 years. In return, the United States agreed to send water from the Colorado River. For a long time, that deal kept the peace and kept the farms alive. But now something is breaking down. As of the most recent reporting cycle, Mexico has delivered far less than it owes. Out of 1.75 million acre-feet, only a fraction has reached American farmers. That shortfall has left irrigation canals dry across the Rio Grande Valley. Fields that once grew sugarcane, citrus, and vegetables are now turning brown. Some farmers have given up planting altogether. Others are drilling deeper wells, hoping to survive until the next rainfall. But many know that rain will not solve the real problem. Drought is one reason. Northern Mexico has been hit hard in recent years, and their own farmers are demanding more water. But there is another issue that runs deeper than weather. The population on both sides of the border has grown, and so has the demand for water. What used to be enough is no longer enough. Water is being stretched thinner every year, and the pressure is building. Politicians are trading accusations. Trade representatives are calling for action. There are even voices in Texas suggesting economic retaliation if Mexico fails to meet its treaty obligations. Tensions escalated to the national level when President Donald Trump took a hardline stance on Mexico's water deliveries under the 1944 treaty. He accused Mexico of stealing the water from Texas farmers and threatened to impose tariffs and sanctions if the country failed to meet its obligations. Trump highlighted that Mexico owed Texas over 1 million acre-feet of water, pointing to the closure of a major sugar mill in the state as a direct consequence. Facing political and economic pressure, Mexico eventually agreed to increase its water transfers. But critics warned that such aggressive tactics could undermine future cooperation over shared natural resources. While officials argue, the effects are immediate on the ground. In some areas, irrigation systems built to supply thousands of acres are now delivering nothing at all. Ranchers are selling off herds because there is not enough water to keep them alive. Citrus groves are withering under the sun. The economic damage runs into the hundreds of millions of dollars. This is not just a Texas problem. It is a warning. When a shared resource begins to fail, cooperation turns to conflict. If two neighbors with a treaty cannot manage one river, what happens when bigger shortages arrive? Are you from Texas? What do you think about the situation with the Rio Grande? Share in the comments. Our team needs your help. Subscribe to our channel to help more people learn the truth about current events. And now, we move on. Mississippi River's low levels. The Mississippi River is one of the most important arteries of the American economy. Stretching over 2,000 miles, it connects the heartland to the Gulf of Mexico. For generations, it has carried everything from grain and coal to steel and oil. But in recent years, this mighty river has begun to shrink. What was once a deep and dependable channel is now often reduced to a series of shallow bottlenecks. Barges get stuck, shipping slows down, and the economic impact is spreading far beyond the riverbanks. In the fall of recent years, water levels on the Mississippi dropped to some of the lowest points in recorded history. In Memphis, the riverbed was exposed in places where water once flowed 10 feet deep. Sandbars appeared where tugboats used to glide. Fleets of barges were forced to carry lighter loads or wait for dredging operations to clear a path. In one instance, over 2,000 barges were stuck waiting in line. Each day of delay costs money. Each interruption in movement sends a ripple through the supply chain. Midwestern farmers rely on the Mississippi to export their harvests. When water levels drop, transportation costs rise. Fewer shipments mean lower prices paid to farmers and higher prices for consumers. Fertilizer, which travels up the river to inland farms, also becomes more expensive and harder to access. So why is this happening? The answer lies in changing weather patterns and land use. The Midwest has been experiencing more frequent droughts, driven by shifts in long-term climate trends. Hotter summers lead to faster evaporation of surface water. At the same time, rainfall is becoming more uneven. Instead of steady precipitation that feeds the river throughout the year, storms now come in sudden, heavy bursts. These downpours run off quickly, causing floods but failing to replenish the groundwater that keeps the river alive during dry months. Human development is making the problem worse. Wetlands that used to store water and release it slowly have been drained or paved over. Agricultural expansion has hardened the soil, reducing its ability to absorb and hold water. The result is a landscape that cannot regulate its own moisture anymore. The Mississippi has become more vulnerable to both drought and flood, and the balance it once held is disappearing. The Army Corps of Engineers is investing in dredging and river monitoring, but these are short-term solutions. The long-term problem is that the river's flow is no longer reliable. This forces tough questions about infrastructure, crop logistics, and energy production. The Mississippi has always been central to American life, but now the country must ask whether it can still be counted on in a future of unpredictable water. Want to help us grow? Share our new video on X. Every share counts. Florida's sinking landscape. Florida is known for its sunshine, beaches, and endless wetlands. But beneath the surface lies a quiet danger that's been growing for decades. The ground here isn't solid rock. It's a soft layer of limestone filled with underground cavities. When those cavities collapse, the surface can suddenly give way. These collapses are known as sinkholes, and they are becoming more common every year. Sinkholes have always been part of Florida's landscape, but now they are happening in places and at rates that weren't seen before. One of the main causes is the overuse of groundwater. As people pump more water from underground aquifers, the pressure that holds the ground together begins to disappear. Once that support is gone, the earth can cave in with no warning. In recent years, massive sinkholes have opened near homes, roads, and businesses. Some of them have swallowed entire buildings in seconds. Florida's population is growing fast, and with it, the demand for water is growing even faster. More homes, more lawns, more people, and more businesses all depend on the same underground reserves. The more water is pumped out, the greater the risk that the ground will collapse. What once was rare is now happening regularly, and few parts of the state are immune. More than 20 million Floridians rely on groundwater every day, not just for drinking, but for farming, industry, and landscaping. The problem gets worse during dry seasons and sudden freezes. When farmers pump huge amounts of water to protect crops from frost, the water table can drop fast. In one freeze event, more than 100 sinkholes appeared in just a few days. These holes didn't just damage roads and fields, they also caused nearby wells to run dry. With every heavy pumping cycle, the ground becomes less stable, increasing the risk of future collapses. Rapid urban development adds another layer of risk. As more land is cleared and paved, natural drainage patterns are disrupted. Rainwater no longer soaks into the soil. Instead, it flows quickly across hard surfaces and fails to recharge the aquifers below. At the same time, leaking pipes and broken sewer lines can wash out soil from underneath buildings and streets. All of these factors combine into a dangerous feedback loop that weakens the land Floridians live on. Despite the risk, construction continues across many parts of the state. Many homes are being built in areas marked as high-risk zones without residents ever knowing it. Insurance claims from sinkholes have skyrocketed, and in some regions, premiums have become unaffordable. As demand for water rises and the pressure on the land increases, the danger becomes more real. Are you from Florida? Do you consider the sinkhole situation to be serious? Let us know your opinion in the comments below. Arizona's cracking ground. In the deserts of Arizona, something alarming is happening beneath the surface. In some areas, the ground has dropped more than 10 feet in just a few decades. These are not small fissures. Some stretch for miles and plunge several feet deep. This isn't a natural shift, it's a man-made crisis. The cause is groundwater overuse. For years, farmers in cities have been drawing water from underground aquifers faster than they can be replenished. As the water disappears, the space it once filled collapses. The weight of the land above pushes downward, and the surface begins to crack. This process is called subsidence, and Arizona is now one of the most extreme examples of it in the United States. The first confirmed earth fissure in Arizona was discovered in 1976 in the Wilcox Basin. Since then, the problem has only grown worse. As of today, more than 200 individual fissures have been identified across the state. Some are just a few feet long, while others stretch for miles. And the list keeps growing as water levels continue to fall. The Wilcox Basin is one of the hardest hit areas. Here, agricultural production has grown steadily, but so has the pressure on water supplies. Farms in this region rely almost entirely on wells. As the water table falls, the land is breaking apart. Dozens of wells have already run dry. What makes the situation worse is that Arizona has, until recently, had almost no restrictions on groundwater use in rural areas. That policy has allowed industrial-scale farms to extract billions of gallons without limits. Land subsidence doesn't just affect empty fields. It causes roads to buckle, irrigation canals to crack, and utility lines to shift. Infrastructure that once seemed permanent now bends and breaks. Repairing that damage is costly and often temporary. Meanwhile, the deeper the water level drops, the harder it becomes to stop the sinking. The ground does not return to its original position once it compacts. In many places, the loss is permanent. The state has started to respond. After years of pressure, Arizona finally designated some high-risk zones as active management areas. These zones now require more oversight and planning before wells can be drilled or water can be pumped. But for some communities, that action may be too late. The damage is already done. The earth has already shifted. It's a warning about what happens when a resource is treated as limitless. When water is pulled from the ground without balance, the land pushes back. Are you from Arizona? Are you concerned about the situation with earth fissures? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. Colorado River's decline. The Colorado River is not just a river, it's the backbone of the American Southwest. It supplies water to over 40 million people across 7 states. It irrigates nearly 6 million acres of farmland. It powers hydroelectric dams, feeds cities and sustains ecosystems from the Rockies to Mexico. But now, this once mighty river is running low. And what's happening beneath the surface may be even worse than what we see above. Over the past century, the river's flow has dropped significantly. Scientists estimate it now carries about 20% less water than it did in the early 1900s. The reasons are both natural and man-made. Less snow in the Rockies means less runoff in the spring. Higher temperatures cause faster evaporation. Meanwhile, cities and farms continue to draw more water than the system can handle. The result is a river in decline, and 2 of its main reservoirs, Lake Mead and Lake Powell, are hitting record lows. Lake Mead near Las Vegas has fallen so far that it exposed decades-old boat wrecks and even human remains. Water levels dropped over 180 feet below full capacity. If the decline continues, the reservoir could fall below the point where it can generate power or release water downstream. Lake Powell is facing a similar fate, but the crisis isn't limited to the surface. Satellite data shows that underground aquifers in the Colorado River Basin are being drained even faster than the river itself. As surface water becomes scarce, cities and farms turn to groundwater to make up the difference. That hidden supply is vanishing at a dangerous pace. The region is now losing both its visible and invisible water sources. The damage is happening from above and below at the same time. Agreements to share the river's water are also under strain. The original compact, signed in 1922, divided the river based on unusually wet years. Today, there is simply not enough to go around. Arizona, California, and Nevada have already been forced to cut their usage. More reductions are coming. Political tensions are rising. Even Mexico, which receives a portion of the water under a separate treaty, has raised concerns. Tribes with legal water rights are also demanding a larger voice in how the river is managed. Efforts are underway to slow the crisis. States have agreed to temporary cuts. Cities are investing in recycled water, conservation programs, and new infrastructure. Farmers are experimenting with drought-resistant crops and smarter irrigation. But these steps may not be enough. The future of the Colorado River is uncertain. Climate projections suggest even less runoff in the decades ahead. If the current trends continue, more drastic cuts will be required. Do you think the water use in your area is sustainable? Tell us what you think in the comments. Water theft on the rise. In regions where water is scarce, desperation can drive people to extremes. In California, a troubling trend has taken root: water theft. As droughts become more frequent and reservoirs shrink, some individuals and organizations have resorted to illegally tapping into public water supplies. What once seemed unthinkable is now happening with alarming regularity. From unmarked trucks pulling up to fire hydrants to unauthorized diversions from irrigation canals, stolen water has become a shadow economy. The issue isn't limited to a few isolated incidents. In recent years, California officials have reported hundreds of cases involving illegal water use. In some counties, water theft complaints have doubled or even tripled. This isn't just about someone watering their lawn during a ban. Large-scale operations have siphoned off thousands of gallons, sometimes every day, to keep crops alive or maintain unpermitted cannabis farms. These operations often take water from remote areas, making enforcement difficult. The impact of water theft ripples beyond the act itself. Stolen water deprives legal users, including farmers and communities that are already struggling with limited supplies. It also damages infrastructure. When thieves tamper with pumps, hydrants, and pipes, they often cause leaks and pressure drops that affect entire neighborhoods. Repairs cost time and money. In some cases, fire departments have discovered broken hydrants that were left unusable during emergencies. The roots of the problem go deeper than crime. California's water rights system is complex, outdated, and difficult to enforce. In many cases, it's hard to prove who owns the water or has the legal right to use it. That confusion creates a gray zone where theft can flourish. And as drought conditions worsen, the pressure to secure water, by any means, only grows. What was once a fringe issue is becoming a systemic threat. The consequences are mounting. Legal farmers lose access. Cities face unexpected shortages. Public trust in water management erodes. And as enforcement struggles to keep up, the message becomes clear. If you can take it, you can use it. This kind of thinking is dangerous. It undermines the very systems that are meant to protect communities during times of scarcity. In the future, water may be treated like oil or gold, precious, protected, and fought over. But if theft becomes normalized, managing supply during crisis will be nearly impossible. Water is not an infinite resource, and when people start stealing it, it's a sign that the crisis has reached a new stage. Are you from California? Do you believe water theft should carry harsher penalties? Let us know in the comments. Ogallala aquifers depletion. Deep beneath the central United States lies one of the largest underground water reserves in the world. The Ogallala aquifer stretches across 8 states and supports nearly 1/3 of all irrigation in the country. It has been the hidden lifeline of American agriculture for decades, feeding cornfields, cattle operations, and entire communities across the Great Plains. But this vast reserve is shrinking at an alarming pace, and once it disappears, there may be no recovery. The Ogallala was formed during the last ice age and recharges incredibly slowly. In some areas, it would take centuries of steady rainfall to restore what has been pumped out in just a few years. Yet industrial farming operations continue to draw billions of gallons from it every season. In regions like western Kansas, eastern Colorado, and the Texas Panhandle, the water level has fallen by more than 70%. What used to be an abundant source of groundwater is now approaching critical levels. This decline is not theoretical. It is already forcing hard choices. Farmers who once relied on shallow wells now have to drill deeper, often at great expense, just to find enough water to keep their crops alive. Some have abandoned their fields altogether. Wells that used to produce thousands of gallons per minute now barely deliver a trickle. In the most depleted zones, the pumps are silent because there is nothing left to reach. The consequences go beyond agriculture. When the aquifer drops, so does the economic stability of the entire region. Jobs vanish. Land loses value. Communities shrink. Schools close. And rural towns that once thrived on farming are left without their economic foundation. A shrinking aquifer means a shrinking future, and no amount of technology can replace the natural reserves that have taken millennia to form. Compounding the problem is climate change. As temperatures rise and rainfall becomes less predictable, farmers become even more dependent on groundwater. It becomes a safety net that is already full of holes. Every dry year accelerates the drawdown, and each foot of lost water makes future farming more uncertain. Experts warn that large sections of the aquifer could run dry within a generation. This is not just a rural issue. The Ogallala affects food prices, supply chains, and national agricultural exports. Its decline could shake the foundation of the American food system. And the worst part is that much of this damage is irreversible. Once the ground compacts after water withdrawal, it loses its ability to hold water again. Are there aquifers like the Ogallala in your region? How are water levels holding up? Let us know in the comments. The return of ghost lakes. In the heart of California's San Joaquin Valley, a ghost has returned. Tulare Lake, once the largest freshwater lake west of the Mississippi River, reappeared in early 2024 after being dry for more than a century. Its comeback was not a miracle. It was a warning. The lake emerged after a series of powerful storms and rapid snowmelt overwhelmed the region's fragile water infrastructure. Within weeks, thousands of acres of farmland were underwater, transforming one of America's most important agricultural zones into a shallow inland sea. Before it vanished in the late 1800s, Tulare Lake spanned nearly 800 square miles. Farmers redirected the rivers that once fed it, turning the dry lake bed into fertile fields. But the land still remembers where water once flowed. When extreme weather struck, the old channels revived. Crops were drowned, roads were swallowed, and homes stood like islands in a temporary ocean. This event was not just a freak occurrence. It was the latest sign that California's water systems are no longer equipped to handle the extremes of a changing climate. The reemergence of Tulare Lake exposed the risks of building farms and infrastructure on top of ancient lake beds. For decades, these lands produced cotton, tomatoes, and almonds. But beneath the surface, they were always floodplains in disguise. When the snowpack in the Sierra Nevada melted faster than expected, reservoirs upstream filled quickly and spilled over. The water followed gravity's path and returned to its historical basin. That basin was now a checkerboard of fields, equipment yards, and farm worker housing. Local officials scrambled to protect critical infrastructure. Levees were hastily reinforced. Pumps worked around the clock. Emergency crews raced to evacuate low-lying areas. Despite the efforts, roughly 94,000 acres of farmland were submerged. Some fields remained underwater for months, destroying crops and delaying future planting seasons. The economic loss was staggering, but the longer-term question loomed even larger. What if this becomes a regular event? Scientists warn that as weather patterns grow more erratic, California could see both deeper droughts and more intense floods. The same systems that deliver months of dryness may also produce massive storms in short bursts. That volatility puts strain on both water storage and flood control. Ancient lakebeds, once seen as conquered land, may become battlegrounds for water once again. The story of Tulare Lake is a reminder that nature never forgets. We can divert rivers and drain wetlands, but those changes are not permanent. When pushed by climate extremes, the environment reclaims its space. Tulare's return was dramatic, but it might not be unique. Other ghost lakes in the western United States may be waiting for their chance to rise again. Are you from California? Are you concerned about the ghost lake situation? Tell us what you think in the comments. Bottled water controversies. For millions of Americans, bottled water is a daily convenience. It promises purity, safety, and a taste untouched by the problems of aging pipes or questionable tap sources. But behind the sleek labels and clean branding lies a growing controversy. As freshwater becomes increasingly scarce, the bottled water industry has found itself at the center of legal battles, public backlash, and unsettling revelations about what we are really drinking. In early 2024, Nestlé, one of the largest bottled water companies in the world, faced a major scandal in Europe. The company admitted to using banned filtration methods on some of its mineral waters in France. As a result, it destroyed more than 2 million bottles of Perrier after bacterial contamination was discovered. While this happened overseas, it reignited scrutiny in the United States, where Nestlé owns major brands like Poland Spring, Pure Life, and Deer Park. That same year, a class action lawsuit targeted Poland Spring, alleging that its water did not come from a natural spring as advertised. Instead, the lawsuit claimed the water was pumped from ordinary groundwater sources. This accusation struck a nerve with consumers, many of whom pay a premium for what they believe is cleaner, healthier, and more naturally sourced water. The idea that bottled water could be no different than what comes out of the tap has shaken consumer trust. But the issues go deeper than misleading labels. Bottled water companies often extract millions of gallons from local aquifers, sometimes in regions already struggling with drought. In Florida, for example, Nestlé has drawn water from springs in areas where natural flows are declining. While the company insists that it follows all regulations, environmental advocates argue that even legal extraction can stress fragile ecosystems and reduce flow to rivers and wetlands that depend on the same sources. The packaging is another concern. Despite the industry's attempts to promote recycling, the majority of plastic bottles still end up in landfills or the ocean. Producing and transporting bottled water also consumes large amounts of energy and fossil fuels. It is an industry that, in many ways, reflects an outdated view of water as a product rather than a shared public resource. The bottled water business has grown rapidly in recent decades. Americans now consume more bottled water than soda, with annual sales exceeding $40 billion. But as trust in tap water declines and fears about contamination rise, the industry has capitalized on public anxiety. Critics argue that the rise of bottled water represents a quiet shift in how we view access to a basic human need. When clean drinking water becomes something to be purchased in single-use containers, questions about equity, sustainability, and truth in marketing cannot be ignored. Do you trust bottled water more than tap water? Should companies be allowed to extract water from drought-prone areas to sell it for profit? Let us know what you think in the comments. Approaching water stress. Across the United States, a silent crisis is creeping into daily life. Water stress, once a concern limited to dry states, is now emerging in places once considered safe. The U.S. Geological Survey and other agencies have sounded the alarm. Rising demand, shrinking aquifers, and climate uncertainty are pushing many regions toward a dangerous tipping point. The question is no longer whether water shortages will happen, but where and how soon they will arrive. Population growth is one of the key drivers. More people means more homes, more industry, and more agriculture. In cities like Phoenix, Las Vegas, and parts of Texas, demand has skyrocketed while supplies have remained flat or declined. The problem is not just in arid zones. Even parts of the Midwest and Northeast are starting to experience seasonal shortages and restrictions. More than 40% of U.S. water systems already report difficulties meeting peak demand during summer months. Compounding the issue is outdated infrastructure. Much of America's water system was built decades ago. Pipes leak, treatment plants are aging, and reservoirs are often ill-equipped for modern extremes. Every year, the U.S. loses over 2 trillion gallons of treated water to broken or leaking infrastructure. That's enough to supply nearly 20 million households for a year. In some cities, the loss is so severe that repairs cannot keep up with new failures. Climate change is acting as a force multiplier. Hotter temperatures increase evaporation. Some still dismiss the idea of climate change, but the evidence is no longer abstract. It is measurable, visible, and already reshaping daily life across the country. In response, some regions are taking action. Cities are investing in desalination, wastewater recycling, and graywater systems. New laws in states like Colorado and Utah encourage rainwater harvesting and efficient irrigation. But these solutions take time, money, and political will. And while innovation may ease the pressure, it will not eliminate the root problem. We are using more water than nature can provide. The map of water stress in the United States is changing fast. Areas once thought immune are now vulnerable. Entire regions may need to rethink their economic models, building codes, and agricultural systems. The water crisis is no longer a distant concern. It is here, growing quietly beneath the surface. And according to scientists, by 2050, billions of people around the world could face a clean water crisis if current patterns of overuse and mismanagement continue. Do you believe your region is prepared for long-term water shortages? Should the federal government play a stronger role in managing national water resources? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for exploring the hidden corners of the USA with us. Click on the video you see on the screen to check out other hidden discoveries on our channel.